Many of us crashed out over the presidential election. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. We crashed out. And right after we crashed out over the election, in traditional Negro fashion, 2 weeks after crashing out over the presidential election, we went to the store and spent millions of dollars on food so we could participate in the Caucasians' celebration of the elimination of the Native Americans. Let me say this again. After you crashed out over the presidential elections, 2 weeks later, you ran to the supermarket, almost none of them being black owned. And you ran to the supermarket and you made a big old dinner. We spent several $1,000,000 on so-called Thanksgiving so we could help our former slave master celebrate his genocide of the Native American people. And then we tried to defend our support of white supremacy's genocide against the natives. And then we tried to support or defend our support of white supremacy's genocide of the natives by saying things, it's just family day. This is just a day me and my family get together and eat. Well, why can't y'all get together and eat on another day? Why did you have to get together and eat on the same day that your slave master gets together and eat? Stop making excuses. You like to feel like you are a part of the white social order of this country. And you don't care if you disrespect another group of people. You want Native Americans to respect your fight for reparations. But you will celebrate their genocide at the hands of the same people that enslaved you. If you haven't read Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro, I strongly suggest that you do so. If you have not read Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro, if you have not read Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro, I strongly suggest you read it. It might be, it's easily, in my opinion, one of the three most important books that an African anywhere in this world, not just the American African, but it's one of the three most important books I believe that an African anywhere in the world can read to understand who we are. Carter G. Woodson is the father of Negro History Week, which began in 1926 or 1927, while the Right Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey was incarcerated. He wrote that book. And of course, Negro History Week was chosen because it included the birth dates of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. And then it became Negro History Month in 1974 or 76, President Gerald Ford. But you need to read Miseducation of the Negro. In fact, let me give you a couple quotes from Dr. Carter G. Woodson. If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. If you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. Who controls the thinking of black children in America? Public school and media. Public school and social media. That's who black children are trained by, not their parents, not the church, not the masjid. We don't really have any black institutions. Outside of school and social media, it would be sports and entertainment. The only person the black boy raised by a black woman answers to outside of his white teachers in social media are the police and his athletic coaches, and that's about it. The police and his athletic coaches, and that's about it. The police and his athletic coaches, and that's about it. Do we want to be free, brothers and sisters? That's the question. Do we want to be free? There's no other question. Don't talk about coming together. Let's not talk about stopping sex trafficking. Let's not talk about building hospitals and distribution and manufacturing and banks and farms and schools. Let's not talk about that. You're putting the cart before the horse. Do we want to be free? Because if we don't, there's no need for another conversation on black reality, black predicament, black solutions. Do we want to be free? And please get your passport, brothers and sisters. Please get your passport. Because if things get too bad, we may have to fly on up out of here to the Caribbean, to South America, Central America, Africa. This is why the American African needs to be real careful about mistreating diasporan Africans. One day you may need them. One day soon you may need them. Haiti is the closest black country to the United States. The last thing you need to be doing is making fun of my Haitian brothers and sisters, because if you ever have to leave here and seek asylum with African people in another part of the world, what you said about them before you got there, what you had to say about them before you got there, may come back to haunt you. Carter G. Woodson also said, if you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status. He will seek it himself. Let me repeat that. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status. He will seek it himself. Did y'all hear that? Carter G. Woodson. If you make black children feel inferior, make them feel inferior. This is not intellectual. This is a feeling. If you make them feel inferior, you don't have to force them to be slaves. They will ask to be slaves. Public school is a factory that produces the Negro inferiority complex. I'm going to say it again. Public school is the factory that produces the Negro inferiority complex. Public school is the factory that produces the Negro inferiority complex. In special education produces a Negro inferiority complex on steroids. If black children's self-esteem is harmed, then the self-esteem of a special education child is supremely harmed. Carter G. Woodson says you cannot serve people by giving them orders and telling them what to do. You have to serve people by showing them how to do it. He said those who have no record of what their ancestors have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history. Brothers and sisters, Carter G. Woodson. If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. History shows that it does not matter who is in power or what revolutionary forces take over the government. Those who have not learned to do for themselves and have to depend solely on other people never obtain any more rights or privileges in the end than they had in the beginning. That sounds like Marcus Garvey right there. But it's his friend Carter G. Woodson. That sounds like Marcus Garvey. But that's Carter G. Woodson. I want to read that again. History shows that it does not matter who is in power or what revolutionary forces take over the government. Those who have not learned to do for themselves and have to depend solely on the government never obtain any more rights or privileges in the end than they had in the beginning. So fan-based Africans, the question is real simple. What are we going to do for ourselves? I don't want to hear about Kamala Harris. I don't want to hear about Joe Biden. I don't want to hear about Barack Obama. I don't want to hear about Donald Trump. I don't want to hear about the Supreme Court. I don't want to hear about the governor in your state. I don't want to hear about no mayor, no council person, no state rep, state senator, or congressperson. What are black people in America going to do for ourselves? That question is never asked. All I hear is a bunch of complaining. And then right after we complain, we go spend our money with the people we are complaining about. What are we going to do? Let me give you another quote from Carter G. Woodson. Philosophers have long conceded, however, that every man has two educators, that which is given to him and that which he gives to himself. Of the two kinds, the latter is by far the more desirable. Indeed, all that is most worthy in a man he must work out and conquer for himself. It is that which constitutes our real and best nourishment. What we are merely taught seldom nourishes the mind, like that which we teach ourselves. Did you hear that? The father of Black History Month just said the education you give yourself is infinitely more valuable than the education you get from your enemy. No man knows what he can do until he tries. My goodness. Ooh, that was powerful right there. That was powerful right there. No man knows what he can do until he tries. My goodness. As another has well said, to handicap a student by teaching him that his blackface is a curse and that his struggle to change his condition is hopeless is the worst sort of a lynching. Let me say that again. For all of us who are comfortable having black children in white controlled public schools. To handicap a student by teaching him that his black face is a curse and that his struggle to change his condition is hopeless is the worst sort of a lynching. My goodness. Negroes must begin to do the very thing which has been taught that they cannot do. Powerful. If the Negro in the ghetto must eternally be fed by the hand that pushes him into the ghetto, he will never become strong enough to get out of the ghetto. Did y'all hear that right there? Handouts will never free black people because the handouts are given by the same people who created the ghetto. The oppressor has always indoctrinated the weak with his interpretation of the crimes of the strong. Old men talk of what they have done, young men talk of what they are doing, and fools talk of what they expect to do. The Negro race has a large share of the last mentioned class. Here's a good one. The educated Negro has the attitude of contempt toward his own people because in their own as well as in their mixed schools, Negroes are taught to admire the Hebrew, the Greek, the Latin, the Teuton, to despise the African. Of the hundreds of Negro high schools recently examined by an expert in the United States Bureau of Education, only 18 offer a course on the history of the Negro. Wow. Let us banish fear. We have been in this mental state for 3 centuries. I am a radical. I am ready to act if I can only find brave men to help me. If a race has no history, if it has no worthwhile tradition, if it becomes negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated. The so-called modern education, with all of its defects, does others more good than it does the Negro, because it has been worked out in conformity to the needs of those who have enslaved and oppressed weaker people. My goodness, long live Carter G. Woodson. Sounding like the right, excellent, honorable Marcus Garvey. Brothers and sisters, I will be coming back on Fanbase to do some more live streams in the future, so make sure you do what you have to do to receive my notifications. I will be speaking in Brooklyn, New York, Sunday, December the 15th, Restoration Plaza. There is a men's conference at 3 p.m. in Brooklyn at the Restoration Plaza on Sunday, December the 15th. I will also be speaking in New Orleans, Louisiana. I will be speaking in New Orleans on Wednesday, December the 18th, 6 to 9, at an African culture fashion show and celebration of heritage. If you need information for those events, please text my cell phone, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off at this time. This is your big brother, Dr. Umar Ifatunde. Make sure you subscribe to my mailing list. Click on my link tree and subscribe to my mailing list. Okay, I will be sending out e-blasts to my supporters to keep you abreast of all of the activities that I'm engaged in on behalf of the Black African race. I hope to see you all at the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy's grand opening. Once a date has been chosen, we will be choosing a date as soon as we get the floors done, brothers and sisters. Make sure you donate to FDMG. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Or hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. Hit the PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. You can message me through Fanbase if you like. If you want a private consultation for your child, you can message me through Fanbase or direct text message 215-989-9858 so we can schedule that private consultation for your child. One love to everyone. Happy 159 years of freedom, and let us get organized. Peace in Pan-Africanism.